So yeah, basically we'll just rock from there. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Who Knows podcast, episode 2. We love the reception on episode 1. Honestly, my best received show so far. So keep up the support. And here we are with episode 2. The loose theme is speculative occult fiction. This all kind of sparked up from Hellboy. So one of our favorite characters in fiction, my favorite for sure. And we'll be going over some light stuff. But just first, for those who are unfamiliar, real quick, I'll just give a quick, brief description of who he is. He's basically a good demon, which sounds kind of weird, especially given his appearance. He's very demonized, no pun intended, um, uh, and like looked down upon because of his appearance. Um, but he's the exception to the rule. In the first movie, it establishes the cult world as a distinctly unfriendly place, and demons and creatures are pure evil. Like there's some crazy Cthulhu stuff, which we'll get to Lovecraft next, and also some straight up, Nazi cult worshiper stuff like that. And his right hand is the key to hell. So, uh, the people who also battle over them, including his girlfriend, have like crucifixes and crosses, and his dad has like a rosary, right?
Yeah.
Yep, rosaries, and a lot of emblems of the Christian faith. So that's a good place to start. And obviously, anytime that we're talking about occult stuff, you have to bring up Judeo-Christian most of the time roots, at least in Western culture, because that's our biggest tie to that stuff, right? How do we know about hell and devil from the Bible mostly, right? Or fiction surrounding the Bible, which we'll get more to that. But on the other side of that, let's talk about some of the crazy cosmic entities and the horrors, like the tentacle monsters and the dimensional stuff. So, right. The father of that, H.P. Lovecraft, also known as Howard Phillips Lovecraft, was born August 20th, 1890, and died March 15th, 1937. He was an American writer of weird science fiction, horror, fantasy stories, but he was also like didn't make any money while he was alive. So a lot of people know him nowadays mainly from like Cthulhu and the Cthulhu mythos that he made. But people like he never made money from his writings, and he was considered a failed writer.
Huh.
But some of his contemporaries, Robert E. Howard, I believe, is one. So the Conan dude, and also a few others, but would be like, dude, you're such a great writer. You have these insane ideas and these really like creepy, like great stories. You should be popular. And he was just kind of ahead of his time with that stuff. So, he's best known for Call of Cthulhu, Green Mountains of Madness, Shadows over Innsmouth, and The Colors Out of Time, or The Colors of Space, something like that. But basically, it deals a lot with like extra dimensional entities who have little to no concern with humanity. And Cthulhu is one of the great slumbering ones who's like sleeping underground, and he gives out these visions to these occult worshippers, and they're like, oh shit, we see the visions. So then they bring about the great awakening of Cthulhu, because they know that'll be the end of the world when he wakes up and he'll fuck shit up.
Is that what they're trying to do with them all?
But I don't know. I don't know sometimes. But I also know that that's like a microcosm of the macro, which is as also in the Cthulhu mythos, Azathoth, which is like the greatest slumbering one, and he's sleep dreaming all of reality, and when he wakes up, it's all fucked. But Lovecraft was really into a lot of occult literature. He even uh, cites the Necronomicon and the Necronomicon of Ex Mortis, the Book of the Dead.
H.R. Geiger.
Geiger
did Necronomicon too.
Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Right. It's a popular occult like symbol, and also because Egyptian Book of the Dead, which we'll get to Aleister Crowley literally next, one of his biggest contributions to like the occult world contribution, I guess you could say, um, was Egyptian tarot and interpreting the Book of the Dead. Um, so Aleister Crowley, born Edward Alexander Crowley, 1875 to 1947. was an English occultist philosopher, ceremonial magician, poet, painter, novelist, and mountaineer.
Wow.
He founded the religion of Thelema, identifying himself as the prophet entrusted with guiding humanity into the Aeon of Horus in the 20th century. A prolific writer, he published widely over his life. So, before I get on to more of that, basically, he was really educated and really smart and really rebellious. So, he learned about a whole bunch of different world religions. Then, he had his honeymoon with his wife, I think his second wife, but maybe his first wife, in Cairo, Egypt, where he claimed to have a prophetic dream where he then sat out and wrote out this book, which were the tenets of Thelema and had a lot of like Hermetic philosophy in it, which we'll get to Hermes and the Hermetic order next. But some of the biographers allege that he was recruited into a British intelligence agency, so maybe he was a disruptor, which there's more conversation to be had on that with like Charles Manson or Jim Morrison or just stuff like that where there's intelligence seeping into the occult influence. Jimmy Page, um, further suggesting that he remained a spy throughout his life. In 1898, he joined the esoteric Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, where he was trained in ceremonial magic by Samuel Liddell McGregor Mathers and Alan Bennett. Sorry, I had to get those names out of the way. But that'll transition us to the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which is also some pretty weird shit. Um, so in Latin, it's Ordo Hermeticus Aurore, more commonly known as the Golden Dawn. Was the secret society devoted to the study, the practice of the cult Hermeticism, right,
Mm-hmm.
and metaphysics, which is kind of a weird cacophony how we got into our situation, how we got to that. Aristotle published physics, and the Greek word meta means beyond or after.
Mm-hmm.
So he had like physics and then physics 2.0, and they just titled it metaphysics,
It's a, it's a T.
beyond universe or after universe or after plane. I guess if that's the merger, that's what he's trying to say. Meta also has a different context like in nowadays, but that's the original Greek. Hermeticism, okay, during the 19th century and the early 20th century, known as the Magical Order of the Hermetic Dawn and the Golden Dawn, uh, was active in Great Britain and focused on practices of theurgy and spiritual development. What does that sound like nowadays? Some Tom Cruise,
Some Scientology.
some
Yeah.
science fucking
Right.
ethology, some Christian Science. The three founders, William Robert Woodman, I'm sorry, William Wynne Westcott, it's pretty silly,
Say that 3 times
and
fast.
Samuel Liddell Mathers, were Freemasons and members of the Securitas Rosicruciana in Angelina, or the Rosicrucians, I believe, as well. So the Golden Dawn was a system based on hierarchy and initiation, similar to the Masonic lodges, which is a lot of speculation. But I just want to get some actual facts out there about the Freemasonry. But what do you have to say about some of the Freemasons?
About the Freemasons. Word is that our great grandpa and our grandpa was part of the Odd Fellows.
Will you gotta speak up?
The Odd
Yeah,
Fellows.
you gotta be loud. That sucker just kicked on.
Oh,
No, it's good.
it's
Getting
good.
warm. So what's up with Oddfellows? Give me a rundown.
The Odd Fellows is an international fraternity consisting of lodges first documented in 1730.
1730. So this predates the Golden Dawn.
Gotcha. I gotta split up for the rest. But
That's
anyways,
pretty cool. Okay, so let's go to Freemasonry, which was before that, and probably fed into that. Well,
okay.
like a lot of secret societies, like what JFK was kind of talking about, right? So Freemasonry or Masonry refers to the fraternal organizations, guilds of stonemasons that at the end of the 14th century regulated the qualifications of stonemasons and their interactions with authorities and clients. Modern Freemasonry consists of two main recognition groups: regular Freemasonry, which insists a volume of scripture be open in a working lodge, and every member professes belief in a supreme being, and no women be admitted.
Really?
Yep.
Hmm.
Uh, and the discussion of religion and politics do not take place within the lodge, and the Continental Freemasonry, which consists of jurisdictions that have removed some or all of these restrictions. So there's two kinds, like a more liberal one and a more that.
Gotcha. Here you
I think we've said enough.
go. Okay.
Or what else? 1819? It was founded in 1819 by Thomas Woodley in Baltimore, Maryland. So United States. So that has ties there. Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
No.
Well, moving on to something kind of interesting. It doesn't have a full-on tie, but was there anything else you had to say about secret organizations, skull and bones, societies? I mean, they've really existed for a long time and cavorting and cavorting.
Yeah.
Brutus, fucking conspiracy to kill Caesar. Illuminati was an enlightened group
Right.
of elites. Um, I don't know. Who knows, brother? Who knows? But you know who knows a lot of shit? This is a Serbian motherfucker who knows a lot of shit. He was born in June of 1856 and died in January of 1943. Do you know who that dude is?
Is it, wait,
It's your boy.
Nikola
It's
Tesla?
your homie, Nikola Tesla. He was an inventor, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, and a futurist. Right? Sounds like some fucking Iron Man shit.
He's the guy. Remember I told you that years ago.
Yeah, he's a super fucking amazing. You're right. You've always been on his nuts. He's best known for his contributions to the design of the modern alternating current and electric supply system. Which,
Everything that we use.
I mean, Elon Musk fucking paid so much homage he did named his company after it. But I think everybody at this point understands. But just for those who are Thomas Edison fucking coattail
Yeah.
huggers, here is a list of some contributions that Nikola Tesla was credited with: the AC motor, the carbon button lamp, the induction motor, the plasma globe, plasma lamp, polyphase system, radio control, resonant inductive coupling, rotating magnetic field, teleforce, telegenome dynamics, teleoperation, Tesla coil, Tesla experimental station, Tesla's oscillator, Tesla turbine, Tesla valve,
Don't forget the Tesla valve.
torpedo, vacuum variable capacitor, violet ray, VTOL, Wardenclyffe Tower,
Yeah.
right? Wireless power transfer, and the World Wireless System, to name a few. So he certainly has a lot more, and
Not to mention all the stuff that he just let people use to make their own.
yes, because he wasn't really a patent guy.
Right.
But this is a little Easter egg for the SuperPod. There was there's a cliff note left where somebody picked it up, and
Yeah.
it was Trump's uncle.
Oh shit.
And these three-letter organizations and how the managerial elite have been in between the top and the people. But that's a discussion for another day. This is a little teaser. It's some interesting stuff. But while we're on the talk of frequencies and energies and esoteric knowledge and and such, especially because we brought up Hermetic philosophy earlier, let's actually talk about the dude or the figure, Hermes Trismegistus, which in Greek is Hermes the thrice greatest. Um, it's a legendary Hellenistic period figure, which Hellenistic period is Alexander the Great.
Mm-hmm.
So Aristotle's pupil, which was Plato's pupil, which was Socrates' pupil, if Socrates was real, or just a figment of Plato's narrative.
Hmm.
Very interesting, right?
Is that a possibility?
Oh, absolutely.
Huh.
Like the only thing we have about Socrates is what Plato wrote, and we just really trust Plato. He wouldn't fucking lie to us. He wouldn't just make up a guy who was perfect and had all the right things to say, would
No,
he?
that doesn't happen.
The main character, and then he died and was martyred,
Hmm.
and he was his hero, and I was his best student, and he loved me most.
Right.
So it's
Yeah, no, it's
totally
perfectly
legit.
legit.
He was smart.
Mr. Epstein.
He was fucking smart. The Greeks weren't that gay.
No, I'm talking about
Hey,
conspiracy theory.
they also, it was different because you didn't live that long. So when you were 14, then you were an adult.
Well, so how old was Plato
When you what?
when he died?
I don't know. Look it up while I throw
Okay.
this down.
Okay.
All right, that got off.
I'm just curious.
Hellenistic period figure that originated in the syncretic combination of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth, which we'll get to in a minute. And he is purported author of the Hermetica, a widely diverse series of ancient and medieval pseudo-biographica or pictographica, deep dipographica, I don't know how to say that word, pseudo-dipographica that lay in the basis of various philosophical systems known as Hermeticism, which I would love to go over with Heather. Okay, so now Thoth and the Emerald Tablets. The Emerald Tablet, also known as the Smargadine Tablet, or the Tabula Smargadina, I don't know, is a compact and cryptic Hermetic text. It is highly regarded by Islamic and European alchemists as the foundation of their art. Though attributed to the legendary Hellenistic figure Hermes Trismegistus, the text of the Emerald Tablet first appears in the number of medieval Arabic sources, which also, you know who was an avid studier of that?
Who?
H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh shit.
Yes. So I've read a few of his short stories that have to deal with the desert and lost knowledge and crypts and stuff like that. Let me finish this real quick.
Mm-hmm.
The oldest of which dates to the late 8th to the early 9th century, and it was translated in Latin time several times in the 12th and 13th century. Okay, I'm sorry, I had to just. What else? Okay, so
He's 80 or 81.
he was born 427,
428.
428, and he died.
No, no, it's 4287 BC.
Okay. He was 80 years old.
428, huh? 80 or 81.
How old was Socrates?
I don't know. How old was Socrates? I don't know. How old was Socrates?
A little bit of a tangent, but who
71.
knows? Who knows, really?
Approximately 71.
Who knows?
Nobody knows, obviously.
Okay, I got a question for you.
What? Suicide by poison?
What year would fall in the 8th century?
No.
Just name a year that would fall in the 8th century. This is a logic question.
Like 750?
Correct. A lot of people hear 8th and go, 800?
Oh, I thought that was a trick question.
Nope, you're smart enough. So, continuing on with some Gnostic Gospels and some more recent discoveries like the Nag Hammadi Library, also known as the Chioboscion manuscripts or the Gnostic Gospels, is a collection of the early Christian and Gnostic texts discovered in Upper Egyptian town. There goes our emotion.
There it goes. Oh, we don't have emotion anymore.
Sweet emotion. Oh, I can't finish that. It was discovered in the Upper Egyptian town of Nag Hammadi in 1945. It included some texts like the Gnostic Apocalypse of Peter, the letter to Peter from Peter to Philip, the Apocalypse or the Gospel of Truth, on the origin of the world. There was also some Plato in here. No crap, they found it. Some texts of Plato's The Republic in the Nag Hammadi library.
Oh, really?
The Gnostics, the ancient Christians, were like, Plato had some good shit to say. um, but since we're going on, we're keeping this like a cult fiction. How else could we do it other than the most used, especially in current Western thought, the most used and interpreted thoughts about hell come from these two works of fiction. First, Dante's Inferno in the 14th century,
Mm-hmm.
which is a part of a trilogy. It's an epic poem of the called the Divine Comedy, and there's Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso, Hell, Purgatory, and Heaven. And it's the story of Dante the Arter. The It describes Dante's journey through hell, which Dante is the actual writer of the thing, so he's
Mm-hmm.
the main character, and he's going through hell and seeing all this, and he's guided by the ancient Roman poet Virgil, who, because he wasn't baptized and believed in Jesus, he was in purgatory, but he's like helping people through hell, or
Mm-hmm.
he's helping Dante through hell. And then in the poem, hell is depicted as nine concentric hells, circles of torment within the earth, and it is a realm for those who have rejected spiritual values by yielding to bestial appetites or violence, by perverting their human intellect to fraud or malice against their fellow man. And as an allegory, the Divine Comedy represents the journey of the soul towards God, with Inferno describing the recognition and rejection of sin. And each one kind of like represents a deadly sin,
Uh-huh.
except for I think two of them. And the final one, which is the ninth one, is treachery, and that's where Satan is, and he's constantly flapping his wings, so it makes everything cold. And he's eating. He has Attila the Hun in one hand, uh, some other like mass murderer in the other hand, and then he's eating Judas Iscariot, the one that betrayed Jesus,
Oh shit.
and he's just a big demon like. So the other one that is also an epic poem, but is from the 17th century, um, is by an English poet named John Milton, which is also part of a three thing. It's like Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained, and I think something else. But it consists of 10 books with 10,000 lines of verse. A second edition in 1674, sorry, that was in 1667, was arranged in 12 books. So, in the manner of Virgil's Aeneid. So, also a nod to Virgil, which was a Roman poet.
Mm-hmm.
Not Christian, but obviously these Christians are like, dang, he was
Right.
smart. He just didn't have Christ. With minor revisions throughout, and it is considered to be Milton's masterpiece and held to solidify his reputation as one of the greatest English poets of all time. The poem concerns the biblical story of the fall of man, the temptation of Adam and Eve by the fallen angel Satan, and their expulsion from the Garden of Eden. And then also, there's the temptation of Jesus Christ, and he has a really good like conflict of how Satan cavorts with his angels as well as how Jesus deals with the temptation and like throws scripture at him. So it's pretty cool, and it's obviously like kind of essential for the study of the occult stuff. I think to get more of a context of the origins of the stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Vice versa. Like a lot of the greatest occultists were Christian, the occultist researchers, I should say, were Christians and like very high level educated Christians like
Mm-hmm.
John Dee or um, several others. Um, so I think each they're kind of two sides of the same coin if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And even narratively, that's what it is. There's a heaven and hell, but how come there's so much hell and so little heaven in movies and literature? I think perhaps it's because filmmakers simply don't know and authors don't really know what to do with God, um, not just theologically, but for the sheer dramatic purpose posed by omnipotence or all three. Omnipotence, I'm sorry, like all three. If he's all powerful and all good and everything, and I made a whole story, how do you fight that? It's the Superman complex times infinity. Um, Against that much power, there's no credible threat. Even Gandalf was ultimately too intimidating for Peter Jackson and company once it became clear that he could drive off the Nazgul. The filmmakers feared to even put an enemy there to diminish any of the power. And they did that with Galadriel too. She's just with a glance.
Huh.
So I did borrow some of this from a what's it called article. So I'll be putting that in the text. If some of that sounds familiar, like hey,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I just wanted to get some of the information and also so it's called Hellboy and the Occult, or the Spiritual Battle. So there was a great article and had a lot of good things to say. But I mean, now it's just kind of free flow. Like we got everything rolling. Like, what do you think about some of the influences or some of the what are some of the media that you're familiar with that have to deal with some of the speculative occult fiction or just in general some occult influences?
I was just wanted to think talk about how much the Hellboy was factual.
Okay. Well, the Nazis for sure were getting into a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like
Who was the guy with the machine?
Jack Parsons.
No, the other the bad guy.
Well, he's American though, but he was definitely dealing with a lot. I don't know the bad guy. I don't think that he was real. I think he was a stand-in. I think it's more of like a dramatized over actualization of the desire that the Nazis had, which I forgot who it was. I think it was Mark Twain, but it was one of the brilliant authors that was saying the deep Odin's revenge is coming, and the deep German in lust for blood will come out in a like overwhelming rule. So I think there's something to do about that too, with like generational curses and also like runes and a lot of witchcraft and Wicca in general
Quarrels. Yeah.
is from Norse mythology or the tribes that took down Rome, like the barbarians.
Huh. What about so does that roll into Captain America stuff too? Timeline?
Totally, but one is Dark Horse Comics and one's Marvel
I just
Comics,
meant the story,
but
like
it
those three.
absolutely does. Red Skull,
Uh-huh.
and he has the Tesseract, and that's the Space Stone. So they're fucking around with teleportation and time and fucking around with that, even though they don't even understand the stones are like this is MCU, but like there's a lot of shit where Red Skull and Hydra, which is a stand-in for the Nazis,
Mm-hmm.
um, even itself is an esoteric symbol. Cut off one head into Shabro, like that's an ancient mythological symbol, and uh, yeah, there's a lot of that in comics, but in particular in Hellboy, something that they do a lot is, especially in the BPRD, is go into more crypto stuff or cryptozoology. Like I'm sure you remember in number two, there's like the troll market,
Yeah.
and so it's more of that stuff of like where's the creepy underground crocodile or where's the bony skeleton Wendigo, like going and traveling around different places and seeing the different cultures, the chupacabra or oh no, King Arthur and the fucking Merlin's witch or whatever, Morgan the Fay. Oh shoot,
Oh.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that influence in comics in general, but in that there's also, I mean, Spawn, which is Todd, Todd McFarlane,
Yeah.
and that was shit more popular than DC in the '90s. It was like the number one selling comic book company. It
Huh.
was more popular than Marvel and DC.
And how many different ones do they have?
Spawn,
I mean, it was just the one Spawn
it was
was.
just the one, but now recently, after like very recently, I'm talking like within the last 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 3 years. Um, Todd McFarlane hit episode or issue 300, which is that with Spawn, which that's where he started with Spider-Man, and he has like the iconic Todd McFarlane cover of Spider-Man at issue 300. He homaged it for Spawn. After that, he did like the Spawn verse, and then there's a whole bunch of different Spawns. One of which I have the trade for. It's called Gunslinger Spawn.
Mm-hmm.
It's this dude from the 1800s who was like wrongfully imprisoned and like hung and shit, and I think he was hung. And then he's like, "Do you want another chance?" He's like, "Hell yeah!" So he becomes a Spawn. But it's
Gotcha.
very similar to Ghost Rider, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Marvel has more of that too. There's a lot. There's like supernatural sides to Marvel, DC, and Dark Horse. I mean, there's books of magic and Vertigo. Sandman is a big one. Who I mean, they deal with huge concepts, more like platonic concepts, even like death and dream and desire, and you know,
Hmm.
they're all related, but they're actual entities. And it was dope. He was battling Lucifer in hell, and they were having a battle of concepts. So they would say something, like they'd be like will, and they'd be like dominance is over will, and then they'd be like strategy or whatever. They'd just say stuff.
Hmm.
And once he was pinned down and there was like nothing he could say, he was just like hope. And that's what like overcame everything. That concept was the most powerful like conception. And then in the comic when that happened, it flashed Superman symbol.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Right on.
like he's the one who fuck you up.
Mhm.
um where else was I going with that? I mean Doctor Strange has a lot of that interesting shit.
Yeah.
Like, cause here's the interesting thing that unless you want to grow up and discover it for yourself, you don't recognize most, if not a good majority of these guys in the 70s and 80s were doing a lot of drugs and psychedelics making these bugs. They're like, yeah, he fights him in the sixth dimension and whips his ass with a judo flip and says, yeah, get your ass back to your dimension. And then his cape flies over to him and he starts reading a book in a time traveling eye. Publish it.
Don't make it lame.
Yeah, it's Superman's pulling a chain of planets held together by a cosmic string, like it's a fucking walk in the park. There was some silly stuff going on. Like the comics have always been silly, but that really like changed the game and upped the scaling and the thoughts. Even a lot of people say now, like classic Marvel is way OP.
Was the styling changed too then? Same time?
Do you mean like the panels, or do you mean like the art and the
The
ink and the
art?
art? Yeah, absolutely. So, Jack Ditko and Steve Kirby, or wait,
Which was the
Jack
one you don't
Kirby.
like?
I'm sorry,
We went through
Steve
this.
Ditko and Jack Kirby, were two amazing artists. Look up Steve Ditko art,
Okay.
or Jack Kirby art. They're both
Okay.
fantastic, but they're Marvel early adopting like artists. And
Jack what?
then we were talking about Spawn and Todd McFarlane. We got Jim Lee. Those guys went to Image. Those are great '90s artists. But I'm
Jack who?
talking about Jack Kirby.
Kirby.
Yeah. So
Jack Kirby art.
hopefully we haven't lost everybody here.
Sorry.
This is pretty
Dragged out
interesting
a little
stuff.
bit.
We started with Hellboy. We're still talking about comics. We're talking about esoteric stuff. Interesting fact here. There's Captain America, but interesting fact. Two things. Jack Kirby, when he created Galactus, he was like, "Well, I just thought of the concept of what if God didn't like us and he was ready to take us out? He wanted to eat us." And then the Silver Surfer was our ambassador.
Oh.
He was the guy that's like, "Hey, don't eat Earth. They're actually kind of
Don't eat
worth.
Earth.
They're actually kind of worth it." So the other thing was,
The other guy.
fuck, I forgot. Steve Ditko. That's the
Steve
art, but I
Ditko.
I forgot what I was gonna say with it.
About Silver Surfer.
No, it had nothing to do with Silver Surfer.
Lost again. Who knows?
Who knows, man? Episode 2. Hope you liked it. Enjoy. If we're still around on the next episode, if they don't kick us off here, because we're having a lot of fun. Um, all of this is just all fun, speculative disclaimer. It might drop a little Wikipedia link down below. We're just having fun. So, hit the like button,
So
subscribe,
far.
and as always, have yourself a wonderful day. Peace.
See you.